I'm your host, Jason Breitkoff. With me once again is guest Dr. Wanda Montañez. Dr. Montañez is a college counselor, so we're going to be talking about some topics that involve her expertise today. How are you doing, Wanda?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about the Advanced Placement Program, or AP, and some experiences we've had with those programs in terms of working with our students, some things we've heard around town, some questions that people have asked, and some rumors we're going to bust based on what we've learned over the years. So I want to begin by saying that for the Endeavor blog, I recently wrote an article about AP, and I did a bunch of research on AP that bolstered what I already knew about the program. And I still come at it from a perspective of a teacher. I've taught AP history programs, and from a test prep instructor, I've tutored students who are doing AP. But the reason why I wanted to talk with you about it, Juan, is that you're a college counselor, you've worked in schools, and you might have a really different perspective on AP from mine and from folks at home like students or parents who are working with AP programs right now, college counselors, teachers, and administrators who have AP at their schools. Can you tell me a little bit about any experience you've had working with students who were taking AP?
In what way?
They were students. They were taking AP classes,
Yes.
and you as a college counselor had to help them with college applications,
Yeah.
course selection, anything like that.
So most of my teaching has been done in the charter school sector. And so given that, there's been very limited resources around APs at some of these schools. So a lot of the kiddos who I've worked with have taken a very minimal amount of APs, and some of them had taken APs online as opposed to in person. But the quality, I think, is comparable whether it's online or it's in person.
Now that's interesting that you brought that up, because in my research I really didn't come across that, and so this is amazing to me. I really want to follow up on this. How did that process get started? How do these students get set up online with AP?
It was definitely a push from the executive director of the high school, who felt that we didn't have the in-house resources to have, a significant number of APs offered outside of APUSH, and I think the other one was maybe AP Calc.
And now, just for listeners and viewers at home, what would you say? What is APUSH?
APUSH, Advanced Placement U.S. History.
Right. Again, I knew that, but I wanted to make sure anybody who's hearing this APUSH, I don't understand what that means, so that we can, again, like most highly educated and highly motivated professionals, we know all the lingo.
Yes.
So I want to break that down for
Yes.
folks at home.
I appreciate that. So there were limited options for students, and what the students were saying was that, none of these options that are on the table are anything that I want to pursue. These are some of the other things that I would like to pursue. So in taking a look at curriculum and budgets and all of that stuff, there was a contract with an outside organization who provided AP resources to our kiddos online.
All right, so they took the AP curriculum, the AP course, the same one that a high school student at a large public high school would take, the College Board's program, their materials, their tests at the end of the year. Same thing.
Absolutely.
Just provided by a third party to the students at the charter school where you were working.
Correct.
Great. And you said, I just want to confirm that you felt that those students got the same experience as someone doing it in a large group in a regular public high school.
I think they got the same content.
Okay.
I think the experience was vastly different.
Okay.
In that it was a lot of their first time just taking an online course, or being able to maneuver how to do that well became a challenge for some of our students. And I think the other piece is when students had questions and they had challenges, there wasn't an immediate, let me just go knock on this teacher's door and see if I can get an answer.
Right.
So it was really, I think the challenges were more around just maneuvering an online class. as opposed to the actual content that they were learning.
Yeah, that's interesting. So for folks listening at home, I think we kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but that's okay because I wanted to know more about your experience. AP, or Advanced Placement, is a program that is managed by the College Board. It's basically college level material, more rigorous classes for high school students to better prepare them for the rigors of college instruction when they get to college. If you go and find our blog post, and I'll try and find a link for the show notes on the video and on the audio podcast, you can take a look at kind of the research that I did and the history of AP, why it was started back in the 1950s, and what purpose it's supposed to serve. And in my opinion, that still serves as a way to help students get better prepared, because research, both published by the College Board and by outside independent sources such as educators, universities, etc., shows that students who take AP classes and fulfill the AP exam tend to be better prepared for the rigors of college. They tend to score better in their other non-AP classes, and they tend to be they tend to have better outcomes when they're at college in terms of graduation, staying matriculated and registered and finishing a college degree. So that's why I think it's important to talk about it, because there are a lot of people who are asking, is AP still useful? Should we bother? And I think that it's a conversation worth having.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's interesting that you talked about how your experience was with students who went to charter schools who were under-resourced. The other place where I feel like AP has been abandoned are the most prestigious, most well-funded private schools. Most of my experience in teaching AP has been private, being that outside provider, being that third-party provider, working one-on-one with a student who attends a very prestigious private school where that school no longer offers AP. And the student came to me to get AP tutoring to go above and beyond what they were getting in school so they could be prepared for the test, because they weren't taking an AP course.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing that I don't talk about in the article that I wrote, was you can take the AP test even if you haven't done the course, if you're at a school that doesn't offer AP classes. And so that was my experience. And so it's interesting that we're seeing that on two ends of the spectrum, the students who are disappointingly under-resourced, and the students who are from the wealthiest families at the most prestigious independent private high schools, both having to seek outside help to get ready for the AP, where the vast majority of public schools in the United States offer AP as an option.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing for me. So as a college counselor, and I have my own opinions on this, and you can read the article to see a lot of them, but as a college counselor, how valuable do you think taking AP is for students applying to college?
I think that it's still quite valuable. And for some students, taking 1, 2, 3, however, many AP classes can literally mean the difference between getting into a college and not getting into a college. Curriculum and the strength of a curriculum is something that college admissions officers weigh heavily in their decision making, although that's not the only criteria that they use. So if I have a 3.0 student in front of me who has not taken any AP courses, and for the sake of argument looks very similar to another student on paper, except the only difference is that this other student has taken, a plethora of AP courses, chances are that I would probably go with student B over student A, because of the AP courses that the student has taken.
Sometimes I get this question, and I have my own feelings about it, but I don't really have any data to back me up. So this is one of those things where I'm not as eager to strongly answer this question as I am other questions. Do you feel that there's such a thing as too many AP classes? A student can take too many?
That's a really, because I can go either way on this.
Right, I feel the same way.
Yeah, I could go either way on this. I think that it's possible for some students to take too many. I think that, an alternative to an AP, and again, this is probably a separate podcast, but an alternative would be a dual enrollment program
What's a dual enrollment program?
A dual enrollment program would be where a high school student is taking college courses, usually at the local community college, and then, that whatever grade they get goes on their transcript. So I would almost venture to say that if the option on the table was to take a bunch of APs or enroll in a dual enrollment, I would probably push a student to do dual enrollment.
Interesting. I mean, the experience that I've had with students is they're concerned that taking too many might affect their grades negatively if the workload would be too strong. And in that case, I'm much more likely to say, well, you want to be logical about it and pick and choose where you want to go. I mean, if you're going to take APs in, AP Physics and AP US History and AP English Language and AP Calculus and AP Psychology all in the same year, and you feel that that's going to hurt your grades, what subjects are your strengths? What do you want to tell colleges about yourself?
Right.
Like for me, for example, I would personally, and I've talked about this on the pod and on the video before, I drop the AP Science and AP Math in a heartbeat and really focus on those humanities, English, History, Psychology, and really tell that story to students. For students to tell that story to colleges to which they're applying. On the other hand, if you can spread them out, I mean, if you're taking 2 a year over your sophomore, junior, and senior years, and you get 6 under your belt, I don't think that's a problem. I think that looks good. I mean, I've heard from some college admissions officers who I've known that anything over 4 they don't care. Like if you've taken up to 4, that really matters, but over 4, it doesn't matter. And I've heard from others where the more the better.
Yeah.
Have you gotten mixed messages like that too?
I have as well. And I think the great phrase in college counseling as well, it depends, right? So, the college admissions process is so vastly different across the country and internationally that everything is dependent on the institution itself.
Right, and again, when you're deciding as a sophomore if you're going to take an AP class or not, because you took honors biology as a 9th grader, and they're saying, well, you could take AP bio right away, not wait and do your other sciences later. And bios, maybe you want to be a doctor, maybe you want to be a vet. You don't know, but it's going to be like in science or medicine, and that's your story. I say go for it.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to encounter an admissions officer who's going to be that person who says, oh, anything over 4, is too much. I only count the first 4s like in the point system we use in our admissions process. That's what's going to be.
Right.
And then you might encounter, you're not going to apply to only that one school, you're going to apply to that other school where the admissions officer's like, yeah, take as many as you can and do well, and it'll matter. I say just take what makes you happy.
Yeah. And to your earlier point around, if you're taking a bunch of these classes and you're really feeling overwhelmed, you need to be mindful of that because scores matter. So if you're getting a C in an AP course that otherwise would have been an A if it wasn't an AP course.
Which would still probably be honors, let's be honest.
Right, exactly. That A is going to look way better in a transcript than that C, an AP, whatever.
Right. Again, the difference between an A- and a B+ in that situation, maybe the B+ in the AP class is more valuable than the A- in the honors class. But if it's going to be a C versus A situation, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
Take the honors class, especially if it's not, in your core competency.
Right, exactly.
If you're not an English person, you're a math science person, you want to load up on those math sciences, but, mom says you've got to take AP English as well, and that's the one where you're going to suffer, I say feel free to let it go and do the lower level, do the honors class so that you can really focus on telling your story and maximizing the grades that are going to help you in the subject you want to take in college.
Right. And I also think it frees up a lot of your time as a student. You're still obviously going to be studying, but the amount of time and effort that you would put into trying to do really well in a subject that's not really your strength is really going to take away from some of the other things that you could be doing to strengthen your college application. I
agree, because the whole point of AP is that it's more rigorous, it's college level material, or at least a faster pace. Sometimes I feel like AP, like for example, history is history. If you're going to study the Civil War, it's not like there's an extra year of the Civil War that only AP students know about.
Right.
But you're going to go at a faster pace or go deeper. Those are the two options for more rigor, at least in my experience. And the other part of that is there's just more work. There's more essays, more homework, more is expected of you. So if instead of writing a 2-page paper on, General Stonewall Jackson, now it's a 5 to 8 page paper. So there's more expected of you. So that's a lot of time commitment.
Yeah.
And if you're deciding between taking 5 AP classes or 3 and maybe, volunteering or doing the school play or being in band or trying out for that sport that you didn't think you were going to try out for, I say, I'm an academic. I'm a teacher. I'm a perpetual student. I still say you should do stuff outside of class.
Yeah, I totally agree. Agree.
I mean, everyone is more than just a brain.
Absolutely.
Everybody has interests. So you gotta live your life and live a joyful life and do things beyond that.
Right.
Now, in your experience, and I've gotten this question a couple of times, my school did this back in the day, and there are still high schools that do this. Students who are freshmen and sophomores, for example, or even some schools where it's freshmen, sophomores, and juniors can't take APs.
Right.
It's only senior year or junior and senior year.
Yep.
In your experience, has that ever hurt a student's application where the school won't let them take APs early?
I don't think so. I think this is kind of where the onus switches from the student to really the admissions counselor who's reading their application. And this is really the time when an admissions counselor has to make really informed decisions about what options students have available to them versus what options students don't have available to them. And that's why oftentimes you'll see that a college counselor tends to read the same applications from the same school year after year after year, because they really become an expert in how that school is creating their curriculum and what options are available to students versus what's not available to students. And then they take that information and weigh it, obviously, in making their decisions.
That makes sense. So, even within AP, sometimes there's a hierarchy. And what I mean by that is there's always this social aspect to things. Who's the in clique and who's not? Are the jocks at a particular school the coolest kids, or are the fashion kids? Are the computer nerds the bottom of the heap, or are the heavy metal kids the bottom of the heap? And funnily enough, I see kind of the same thing in AP where some students, some teachers, even some administrators downplay some AP tests. I've seen people really speak badly about APs like US government and politics, human geography. Like that one, people tell, oh, that's not a real AP, that's just human geography. That's like AP for dummies. And I'm shocked to hear that, because from my experience, AP is AP. Not every AP is going to be physics or calculus BC.
Right.
An AP class is a rigorous class. And again, that even works for some of the artistic ones, studio art, music theory, things like that, where people are just like, oh, come on, that can't be a real AP. It's, it's art. So in your opinion, have you seen colleges look poorly on certain APs just because of what topic they are?
I haven't seen that from my own personal experience. I imagine that it probably has happened. But I think this is kind of where that notion of assessing a student as a whole really comes into play, because perhaps this music theory class that's AP that a student took is really well tied to who they are as a musician outside of high school and what they want to do with their career interests in the future. So I think this is kind of where that comes into play, where you really have to look at the whole picture of a student at their application that's in front of you to get a good narrative of who they are.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I did the music theory AP in high school. I did 4 years of music theory and history class. Yep. My 4th year was a combo music 4 and AP. So at the end of the year, we took the AP exam, and that was, in some strange way, the hardest AP exam I took. Right. It was very challenging. And I can't imagine somebody saying that that's not a real AP class or that's not a real AP test, because based on my experience, that was high-level material.
Right.
And that was one of the AP classes I took in addition to English. And I got to admit, this was long enough ago that I can't remember if I took English language or English lit. I can't remember. Yeah. I guess I could go look up my high school transcripts, but I can't remember which one it was. I know I took one English, and I took the U.S. history AP. as well. And I don't feel like the music theory class was easier than either of those other two classes.
Right.
The amount of writing I was doing, etc.
Yeah.
So I just can't imagine. In fact, if I had the option to take human geography or U.S. government at my high school, which did not offer those APs, I would have taken them. They were right up my. I mean, I was a history, English, arts guy. I would have taken geography. I would have taken government and politics. I would have taken AP psychology, maybe, like if I had the chance.
Right.
They all sound like great subjects for someone like me. I don't know about if you've seen this, but I have seen this mostly coming from folks who are more on the hard sciencey side. That they're not taking the arts and some of the humanities as seriously.
Right. Yeah.
And again, that's not to insult anybody who's a medical science person or an engineer person or a math person. It's just, sometimes you see that sort of cliquish bias.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
think that exists even when you're not in the education realm.
I think it exists a lot when you're not in the education realm. So, I mean, that was my experience with it.
Yeah.
And I found it very valuable, and I feel like it was useful to me. Let's just talk about the last thing I want to touch on, the last area, which is how AP is applied by colleges.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start with my personal story. If you have a story, please jump in.
Sure.
I mean, you might have a story, you might not want to share it, but I definitely want to do. When I went to college, I had taken 3 APs and gotten 4s and 5s, which are generally considered the top scores. 3 is technically passing, but most colleges will not apply credit if you get a 3 on the exam. They'll only apply credit if you get a 4 or a 5, and sometimes only if you get a 5 in certain topics. So for me, even though I did well on my U.S. history AP, it really didn't have any effect at the college level. I was going to be a history major, and it didn't get me out of any classes, didn't give me the option to take more advanced classes, nor did getting a 5 on the music AP actually affect me in any way because I wasn't going to be a music major. Where the AP actually made a difference for me was in the English AP.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to college, I, like most students, and again, it's probably still true today, I had to take a basically freshman writing seminar class, the basic writing class that colleges give to make sure you can write at the college level.
Yep.
And because of my score on my English AP, and again, I still to this day cannot remember it was English language or English literature. Again, both involve a ton of writing. And if my AP English teacher, Miss Pacheco, is listening to this podcast, which I doubt she is, leave a comment in the comments to remind me. Because again, that was 20 odd years ago, and I just don't remember. But what it did was it allowed me to just kind of skip that class.
Right.
I still had to take a writing class, but I didn't have to take freshman writing seminar.
Mm-hmm.
I got to take a more advanced writing class, which turned out to be so much better.
Right.
I was able to take something a little bit more advanced, avoid the basics of how to write a paper, because apparently I knew how to do it since I got a 5 on the AP in English, and I think that was to my benefit. I didn't take any fewer classes in college. I still had to take 32 classes to graduate,
Mm-hmm.
but I had basically credit for 34 classes on my transcript. They say, oh, you took 34, 2 of them in high school.
Right.
And I got to start with a harder, more advanced writing class.
Yeah.
And I think is that similar to what you've seen as a counselor with the experience of other students?
Yeah, I have, and I think that's really the advantage that students get in taking, these AP exams. You don't want a student, whether it's in high school or in college, spending a significant time sitting in a classroom where they're bored because the rigor of the class isn't where they need it to be in order to maintain their interest. So I think, and I've definitely worked with some extremely talented students academically who, if there was not an AP option on the table, the other option, it just wasn't enough to hold their interest. And so I think it just as a student, it just sets you up to feel like you're being challenged in a great way, whether it's on the high school side or on the college side.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about regarding advanced placement or AP. Is there anything else on your mind at this point?
I I don't think so, Jason.
All right, I think that covers it all. If you have any additional questions, we can do more videos and podcast episodes on advanced placement. So please leave any questions or comments for the videos on YouTube in the comment section below the video. For the podcast, you can leave comments on iTunes, Anchor, any of the other services where we have our episodes. I know we just launched the first 8 episodes a few days ago, and I know they're up on iTunes and the iTunes podcast app on iOS devices and the Anchor service, and we're getting them on Google Play and Spotify shortly, so that they will be there soon. So please feel free to subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube video channel, and leave us comments, leave us ratings, share, tweet, Facebook post, Snapchat about us if you really want to, although I will not see it because I don't get Snapchat. I mean, that's the one area where I'm old, is Snapchat. Everywhere else I'm young. With Twitter, I'm a 13-year-old right away. I'm with Twitter. I'm on, right there. So thank you so much for listening and or watching, or both if you really love us. And as always, let's keep learning.